Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Pastor Mike with New Hope Network. We're here to help you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. I'm so glad you're with us today.
What's up, New Hope family? Welcome back to the Grow Podcast. My name is David. I've got Pastor Mike here with me.
I am here.
Episode 35.
35.
I don't have anything special for this episode like I did last week.
It's good.
So it's just episode 35.
We might actually get to the topic sooner than we normally do.
No, we can't have that. We got to come up with something else to talk about. Let's, I don't know. I don't have anything for 35.
It's halfway
Am I
to
35?
70.
No, I'm 34.
You don't know how old you are? That's a sign of old age, and that's not old yet.
That's been me since I was about 16 years old. Actually, 18, once I could vote.
Okay, this is sort of related, but not related to 35, just generally related. So, and this is a free Bible teaching. Okay,
Ooh.
So I was studying
not in the notes.
In the book of Numbers, which is everybody's favorite book to read in the Old Testament.
Almost as good as Lamentations.
And the priests or the spiritual leaders were told to basically retire at the age of 50, which means I should have now been retired for 2 years. But the word retire wasn't...
No comments about that.
Because it's not a biblical word.
Please.
It wasn't the word retire that was used. It was you move from actively becoming a priest to now coaching everybody else.
Okay.
And I just, there's another podcast for us for the future. I don't know what that has to do with episode 35, other than we were thinking about old age. And I think as you get older, it's cool because you get to move. God designed the pattern for us to move into.
Yeah.
Let's begin coaching others rather than, the tradition. I'm just going to work hard till I'm that. So the second half of your life becomes more investing in others.
So you're saying it's biblical for me to retire at age 50?
Sure.
And if I
think it's
biblical
biblical
here
for us
until age 50, the church will then support me financially as I retire
Not
at 50?
sure that's what that
okay,
said, but I think it's biblical for us to invest in others. So
yes.
On that note, let's talk about the Grow Podcast.
Yeah. The podcast can be president now, 35.
Oh,
there we go. We got
there's
one.
Your,
we got one.
There's your
we got
US
one, everybody.
history.
We
got
nailed it. No, we're going to talk about, contentment today.
Yes.
And discontentment.
Discontentment.
Which is, that's my preferred one. It's a lot easier.
It is easier. It's more frustrating.
Yes.
And this weekend we talked more about discontentment because in this series, Bless This Mess, I'm probably stealing your thunder, we talked about why relationships are messy and how they're all messy, but then we're dealing with in these last three, the three things that tend to be what I would call the spark that starts the fire of messes more than anything else. So like last week we talked about sex, which was a fun podcast.
It was.
You can decide whether it was a great podcast or not. And intense weekend. This week we talked about contentment because discontentment messes everything up.
Yeah.
And next week we're going to talk about resentment and holding grudges and offense.
A lot of ments.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't intentional. It's just part of my psychosis.
Paul told us that he had learned the secret of being content.
Yeah.
So you're going to teach us how to be content in 2 sentences. Let us have it.
How to be content in 2 sentences.
Yeah. It might take a little longer.
Why don't we go back and listen to yesterday's teaching? Last weekend's teaching.
How do we grow in contentment? And therefore shrink our discontentment. I think
one of the things we need to realize is we think contentment is a choice. And a lot of people have said it's a choice. It's not a choice to just suddenly declare, yes, I'm content. It's a choice to, and you use the key word, to grow it. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between training and trying. It's been an episode or 2 since I've used a sports metaphor.
Oh boy!
So here we go. But instead of basketball, let's do something else. Let's pick on you and I. Let's say you and I decided we want to run a marathon. Why we would do that, I have no idea.
That would be the worst decision of my life.
But so
and maybe the last decision of my life.
We decide we're going to do it next weekend.
That would definitely become the last decision of my life.
And so we move from sitting on the couch, watching March Madness is looming, watching March Madness, eating all the chips we want to. The next day, we're going to run a marathon.
I am offended that you're assuming I'm not currently training for a marathon.
I know you aren't currently training for a marathon. We wouldn't get very far.
No.
I mean, we might finish, but it probably wouldn't be under time, and we wouldn't be in great shape.
How many days do we get?
Exactly. we can try to be content, and most of us will fail. Training, and by the way, most things when the Bible talks about the fruit of the Spirit, which it doesn't specifically name contentment, but it talks about things like peace and love and joy. Contentment, I would say, is a symptom of those fruit. Most of those things come from training. You have to train. Contentment is a muscle that you have to train. It has to be grown. So it takes stretching. It takes discomfort, which is probably why you and I will never run a marathon. And it takes repeated practice.
I mean, the first person to run a marathon in ancient Greece died as soon as he got there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's I want to say it's 26.2 miles from Marathon to Athens.
Okay.
And so there's a big battle at Marathon, and the Athenians and their allies won.
Okay.
But then their enemies jumped on their boats and went to sail around to attack by sea. And so one of the soldiers, after the battle, ran from Marathon to Athens to warn them of the incoming attack.
I just learned some history that I had no idea.
And then he fell. I mean, it's not like we have video of it, but the story goes he then fell over and died as soon as he shared the message. This is why I will never play a trivia game with you. Hopefully I nailed all of those things correctly, but yes. So
yeah,
I think it's fair for me to not run a marathon.
Yeah. And if you want to just bottom line it, trying is saying, I'm going to do this, even though I'm not ready for it. Training is saying, I'm going to practice what is needed to develop and grow my ability or my skill or my attitude. I need to practice. So part of what I want to do today is to talk about how do we train for contentment. And there's lots of things. About some scholars call them spiritual disciplines. I don't like that word because most of us, as soon as we use the D word, disciplines, like I don't want anything to do with it.
Yep.
Or we feel like we're going to fail at. So let's talk about spiritual training.
Okay.
Or spiritual habits. And I want to give a few, and I'm going to give some different levels. So it's like going to the gym. And, I remember when I went to the gym, a friend of mine acted as my trainer, and you would never know it looking at me. And he was just ripped and buffed. Brendan is his name. Is actually the same name as my oldest son. And Brendan, if you're watching this, a shout out to you. And I remember him looking at me and saying, okay, we're going to have to start very simple. And him giving me like a bar and thinking, that's light. He said, yeah, but you're going to be sore with that tomorrow.
Yep.
So we'll start like 101, 201, 301 to go through these.
We'll hit the bunny hill first.
We'll hit the bunny. That's a great illustration.
Yeah.
We'll hit the bunny hill first.
All right.
So
what do we got? What's the bunny
here's
hill?
the first one. You're going to like this. The spiritual habit of celebration.
Oh.
Celebration. Yeah. One of the reasons I think we struggle with discontentment is we live so much of our lives trying to get somewhere. We hurry. I need to do stuff. We're constantly, I need to get this done. I need to get this done. Or even just generally in life, okay, I know what I'm doing right now. I can't wait until I get to, get the next promotion or whatever.
Yeah.
And we don't stop and it's two sides of this coin. Either celebrate what's really happening. We might do just a little bit of it. Or the other thing, and this is a discussion for another thing, we don't stop and mourn what we lost. What we've lost along the way. And I think the absence of celebration sometimes is what causes discontentment. And so what we need to do is just practice once in a while, celebrate.
One of our earliest podcasts was about partying, was it not?
Yeah.
So this would be a great time to pause and go listen to our partying podcast where Pastor Mike told us that we should party all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe not all the time.
Well, but when you look at the Old Testament,
right
now I'm reading, and those of you who maybe, we're in 2022, depending on when you're listening to this, who are going through our Bible reading plan that we challenged several weeks ago, all of us to go through. I'm using one from the Bible Project, which is phenomenal. So a lot of us are in like the Old Testament law, Exodus and Numbers and Leviticus, which I know is boring. But when you read through it, I'd encourage you to go back and start writing down all of the holidays. God every time you turn around, you need to stop and celebrate this. You need to stop and celebrate this. And when you celebrate, don't work, don't produce. You need to party. You need to celebrate. You need to remember. And we talked about that in that podcast. And we talked about the fact that it's the reason we call it holiday is because it's holy day. And we tend to think of holy as somber and, whatever. God intends holy to be filled with a party and joy. And joy and contentment are closely connected. You cannot be joyful if you are not content, and I don't believe you can be content if you don't have joy. And so let's just talk about how to celebrate. Okay? And I'm going to call strategic celebration. So the Bible talked about we just talked about the Old Testament, having strategically planned days to celebrate. And we already have some of these built in, right? We have our own holidays. But we tend to put more
Selection Sunday for March Madness.
Sure. Yeah. Your favorite holiday, which
Selection Sunday.
No,
Thanksgiving would come after that.
It would come after that because you always say,
Selection Sunday is my Christmas.
Okay.
But yes, thanks of the normal holidays, of the things you consider holidays, Thanksgiving.
But something where you just say, I'm not going to work. I'm going to rest. I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to eat stuff I love, and do that. So, in the Old Testament talks about, it uses the word eat the fat. Another word is eat choice food. The Bible gives you permission to once in a while eat stuff that's not good for you.
Yeah.
And I think you need to. So 2 ways you can do this to practice strategic celebration. One is set aside days periodically. And the Bible actually set aside a day a week. It was called the Sabbath. It also set aside seasons during the year. But whatever it is, find a day periodically just to celebrate, to do fun stuff, to do refilling stuff. Kylie and I, our family, will plan days where we like to find a hill, find a mountain, find woods, and just go out and enjoy it. Find beauty. John Eldridge, if you've ever read any of his books, talks about this. Eat fun stuff. If you're in another part of the country, go to someplace like In-N-Out, or what's one of your favorite restaurants?
Like fast food restaurant?
Yeah.
Raising Cane's, Portillo's.
Yeah. Find someplace good. And here's the other thing. Share it with someone. So don't just do it by yourself. Or here's the second way to practice celebration. Practice this is the day moments. There was a song growing up in my church that we'd sing, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day the Lord has made. I still have it replaying in my mind. But it's based on Scripture. And periodically throughout the day, just stop and verbally in your mind, or maybe even write them down, list what you have experienced that day, where you can say, this is what God has done this day, the things that are good and bring joy. The Bible says every good and perfect gift comes from above. So in other words, if something good happened to you, that's a God gift. And we stop and we celebrate. And what are we doing? We're growing that muscle.
What if, because of things going on in my life or where I'm at in my life right now, I don't feel like I have much to celebrate?
And sometimes this takes more work. It's like sometimes I don't feel like going to the gym. And, it's easier sometimes to say, I don't want to. But sometimes we just need to go and we need to lift those weights. We need to get on that treadmill. Sometimes we need to go and we need to sit and go, okay, I don't have much to celebrate, but something good.
Find the one thing.
Find one thing and write it down and share it. Or here's one thing that I've actually done lately is when I can't find something, I look for something I can read or something I can watch that will make me laugh. And laughter will actually produce biologically, and this is a God-given gift, the endorphins and the chemicals that will grow our joy and our contentment muscles in us. There's a guy I know every single morning for like 30 years. He bought joke books. And every single morning he would read 3 or 4 jokes and he would tell them all day long, and everybody just knew that's what he did. And he was one of the most joy-filled people. Yeah. Sometimes, yes, you'd go, okay, here comes another, joke. But he just practiced this.
So you're saying those of us who regularly binge watch The Office are doing a really good job celebrating?
I think, what you can do with those kinds of things. My family rolls their eyes because I subscribe to 3 or 4 Twitter accounts that are dad jokes that are just the eye rollers, but it's just telling them and watching their eyes roll and groan. That's part of how I celebrate that. So that's kind of 101 level. Yeah. Strategic celebration, a day or this is the day moments. Okay.
Yeah. What do we got for number 2?
Number 2, this is a different one. Secrecy. We don't think about this. And the practice of this kind of goes back to some of the middle-aged monks. But one of the reasons we're discontent is honestly because we crave attention. Why do we want what someone else wants? I talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, in the weekend teaching, where how often do we discover when we go to a friend's house that we need something that we didn't know we needed? I talked about how one of our pastors here on staff, Jordan, I went over to his fiance's house. They're getting married, and I went over to their house, and Kylie and I were doing some premarital counseling, and he had one of these new frame TVs up on the wall, and I'd heard about him. I saw that thing. I looked at Kylie. I didn't know I needed this.
Well, I think today we don't even have to go to our friend's house to see that with social media. We just have to pull our phone out and look at our friends' Instagram.
What's Instagram all about?
Yep.
And why are so many people discontent? Because we compare our entire lives to other people's highlight reels.
Yep.
And of course their life looks great. But there's this comparison. We crave attention. There's comparison.
Yep.
So to grow contentment, we need to sometimes shrink discontentment. So one of the things that we do is we think we have to starve one. But if we're going to starve discontentment, we need to feed contentment. So part of what this is starving discontentment and it's feeding. So the habit in a nutshell is do stuff that's good and try and make sure no one else finds out about it.
Does that still count as a good thing if I don't post it to Instagram, though? I'm not.
Yeah. But truth is, most of us are approval addicts or we're comparison addicts.
Yeah.
So do stuff for someone and do your best to keep it secret. Leave some money in an envelope for someone. Do something for...
My address is...
Do something for someone in the family and leave the whole family guessing.
Yeah.
Now, don't lie about it, but leave someone guessing. But there is something when I practice secrecy, I'm engaging in good stuff and keeping it quiet. It's producing joy of I do this for an audience of one. And when I realize, and when I grow the muscle and the realization I'm doing this for an audience of one, it grows my joy and it shrinks my discontentment.
All right, what's 301?
Last one is my least favorite and most of our least favorite. It's fasting.
Yeah, but I'm hungry.
Yeah, exactly. I had someone say that to me. I tried that fasting thing and I got hungry. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
What if I'm really, really good at the first two? Do I get to skip the third one here? What if I eat secretly? Yeah. Does that count?
And it's a little bit like going to the gym. Different, we all have different bodies that work different ways, and different exercises work better for different ones of us and different levels. And different spiritual trainings are the same thing. This one isn't for everybody at every level. The Bible, this is one of the spiritual habits that the Bible implies every Christian should practice at some level, which is one of the only ones that it really nails it.
Yeah.
And most of us know what fasting is at some level, right? We just refer to it. It's giving up food for a while. But here's the deal. Just not eating or not doing something tends to do what?
Makes us want it more.
It makes us want it more. Yeah. So fasting isn't about not doing something or not eating. The best practice of fasting is to give up something and replace it with something better while you're doing it. Okay? So, like if you're food fasting, give up food, but replace that time when you would be eating with something that will feed your soul. And some people suggested, and I've struggled with this, I'll be honest, some people said, well, replace that time with a time of prayer. Well, when I'm trying to pray, I hear my stomach more. So you might want to combine this with secrecy or celebration, So give up food, and if you can do this with your small group, this is awesome. Spend that time with friends. So maybe I'm going to give up this meal, and we're going to invite some people over to our house. We aren't going to eat. We're going to play board games together, and replace it. So what are you doing? You're giving up something so that you can focus more on something else. You could do single food fasting. So give up sugar, but replace it with exploring new flavors that are healthy. So what's that doing? It's raising your awareness and engaging in that time. Time fasting. Give up TV. We've all seen people do this, right? They go on social media. I'm fasting from social media. I want you all to know this. Okay, so you said you're going to give it up by announcing it to the whole world and practicing what you just said you're going to do. But give up something that normally takes up a bunch of your time and replace it with something that may feed your soul even more. Hanging out with family, maybe going for walks with a friend, or going out in nature more. Of course, the best replacement, if you can, is whatever you're giving up, is to replace that time with something that is really focused on growing deeper in knowing who Jesus is.
Right.
But it doesn't just have to be getting on your knees and hearing your stomach rumble. Could be some good spiritual reading or listening. Only about 52% of us like to read on a regular basis. So I know I recommend books all the time, but I recognize not everybody does. Get an audiobook and do that. There's a couple of great books I suggest on this. The Life You've Always Wanted by John Ortberg. It's an older book, but it's really, really good. Another book called Walking with God by John Eldredge. Another book, Home Run Life by a friend of mine, Kevin Myers. Just listen to those when you're giving up something else. Or listen to music, worship music during that time. Listen to podcasts. Maybe you give up a meal and you listen to these podcasts, every week. Like I said, nature, beauty. And there's a whole bunch of others. You can think about this. But here's the point. If you want to grow contentment, you've got to exercise it. Yeah. So do things that feed it and that starve discontentment.
Well, thank you, Pastor Mike. We've got a lot to do this week. Last week it was just go get a book, and now I've got to celebrate and do stuff in secret and fast.
Pick one.
Yeah, what's our homework? Okay,
pick one, and just try it. Celebration. Maybe set aside a day, or say I'm going to practice, and let your calendar, maybe on your phone, remind you 4 times a day, I'm going to stop and practice this is the day moment. Or if you want to go to a little bit deeper level, practice secrecy. Every day do something for that. Or if you really want to exercise this in a deeper level, try some kind of fasting. But here's what I would say. Start small.
Sure.
Start small.
Yeah.
Don't set yourself up to go, man, I screwed that up. And if you don't mess it up, don't beat yourself up. Just try again.
Yeah. Well, and as we say it every week, but growth starts with the next step. Yep. And so, just pick one.
Yep.
Pick
one.
Doesn't have to start
small.
with 15 next steps.
Yep,
it starts with one next step. So pick one. I really don't want to pick fasting, which probably means it's probably the one I'm supposed to pick. But thank you, Pastor Mike, for this conversation. I appreciate your teaching as always. Thank all of you for joining us. If you haven't subscribed yet, I want to encourage you to do that so you get notified when the new episodes go up. But they go up every week on Monday. And our weekend teaching, really want to encourage you to check that out as well if you haven't, because this podcast always kind of ties in and supplements that. So if you're missing the weekend teaching, you're missing a lot as well. Yeah. So make sure you check that out. We have one more week of this Bless This Mess series coming up next week, assuming you're listening to this the week that it goes out. Yeah. Just confused myself, but thank you all for being here so much. We really do appreciate you. We'd love to hear any feedback that you have. So go ahead and leave us a comment or a review. We will see you next week.